Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for another session today. My name is Rachel McIntosh, if we haven't already met, and I'm here with a fantastic team of experts for this session. So let me give you a little bit of background information. Throughout 2020 and beyond, the limelight has been shining on the Middle East. When it comes to marketing activities and possibilities to grow a brokerage, this area of the world has been the center of limitless opportunities. So for this next session, we've invited an all-star team of industry and marketing experts to discuss how brokers in the Middle East have excelled in attracting affluent investors from around the globe. Our moderator is Elizabeth Rayment. She is the director of Your Mind Media, and she's going to lead this exciting discussion on how brokers can use the first ever Formula One in Saudi Arabia and the World Cup in Qatar for their marketing efforts, new opportunities to promote financial services in the Middle East, and post-pandemic marketing and CSR. Elizabeth is also going to introduce our panelists, so let's welcome them to the stage. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As I was introduced, my name is Elizabeth. I run a marketing agency for financial services, and I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, give a brief introduction about what they do and which company they represent, and also touch on the points that they think are the most important marketing tactics to attract affluent investors in the Middle East. And we'll start with Oliver.
Thanks, Liz. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Oliver Kent, the Managing Director of ZK Sports and Entertainment, a sports hospitality and sports marketing agency based here in Dubai. We've been here nearly 13 years now. It feels like a lifetime. But we primarily focus on working with clients such as the online trading and investment firms here, helping them organize VIP experiences for their top clients, their top stakeholders, to Formula One, football, golf, all over the world. And touching on your point there, we found a lot over the recent sort of 2-3 years is that experiences and experiential is the way that a lot of these companies are going, and not just this industry, but actually across a lot of industries where it's not just sort of a materialistic thing that people want to give to their most important sort of guests. It's now experiences that these people can go back and talk about and remember them for a long time, and also that allows them to create really good content around it at these experiences. So it's been a great sort of 2-3 years, and there's a lot changing, and I think it's going to continue. So.
Thank you, Oliver. And then we have Tara from Saxo Bank.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Liz. So I'm Tyan. I'm heading the marketing efforts of Saxo Bank in the Middle East roughly since 2015. I've been a marketeer for 15 years and the last 10 in the financial industry. I hope that doesn't give away my age. But I mean, working for the Middle East, I've done that all my life, and I've always worked with companies that were based in Europe that had a very different mentality. And adapting that mentality to the Middle East and bringing that local flavor has been my bread and butter, what I really enjoy doing. And because this region is so rich, and not just rich as in wealthy, but also rich in the way, in the mentality, in how people approach things. As Oliver said, it's all about experiences. Yes, there is definitely a bit of show off, but at the end of the day, people really love enjoying things here. And so the approach to how you get a client on board and then how you treat the client consequently is very different than it would be in other parts of the world. And that's what I really enjoy doing over on different channels and different experiences, etc. So that's from my side.
Thank you, Tara. I look forward to hearing more about that shortly. And then we have Mohammad from FXPRIMUS.
Yeah, hi. My name is Mohammad. I work at FXPRIMUS, who's a retail broker. Like Tara, I handle the marketing initiatives for the company regionally in the Middle East. I got a bit under Tara, 10, 11 years of marketing under my belt. So I started in digital, expanded into offline, traditional marketing, and so on. We try to incorporate all of that into our marketing strategy, and I don't want to dive too much into it. We'll leave a bit to the panel.
Yeah, we've got plenty of questions. And then last but not least, we have Renos, who's lovely and tanned, as he's just come back from Zanzibar. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Jealous.
Hi everyone, my name is Renos. I am the founder of Sierra Hope Foundation, which is based in Zanzibar, as Elizabeth said. We provide education to 53 unprivileged children aged between 3 and 7 years old through our school, Seeds of Light. I've been in the UAE since 2009, and my profession is digital marketing. I used to work for one of the brokers that you see outside in the flashy kiosks. And now I'm sitting on the other side trying to convince brokers and other companies how they can actually allocate some budget to make a social impact and service the community as well as their clients.
Thank you very much. And let's jump back to Mohammad, who's recently moved back to the region. If you can tell us a little bit about what assets you think work better in this region compared to the rest of the world. And also about localization. How important is that?
Yeah, wonderful. So, as Liz said, I just moved back to the region to focus a bit more here. Before that, I was a global digital marketing head for the company and on offline. So we used to do a lot of events and fly across the world, localized promotions and so on. So one thing that we did notice is it's a very important part to localize your offerings based on where you are in terms of products, messaging, content and all of that, but mainly the product side. Because whatever we advertised and worked in, let's say Southeast Asia, didn't actually work well here. So I would say some of the class assets, maybe Tara can back me up later. For example, here they focus more on commodities, so like with the top being gold, obviously, and then oil, rather than doing majors where if you go down to Southeast Asia, they're all about currencies, because for them that's like, okay, that's what I see on TV, the US dollar, GPP, and so on. So I think it plays a major part to try and localize your offering so you can offer that product that speaks to the people who live in the region. And then localization is huge because the way I deliver a message to an audience that is accustomed to a certain way here is different than the way you would deliver it somewhere in Asia. So digital is very prominent in the region here, especially with affluent investors. Like it's a very, very important channel that is as much tapping into it as we do. It's always ever evolving and there's always something new to keep up with. And you need to just stay ahead of the trend, especially with affluent investors, because they're much smarter than your traditional investor from 5 to 10 years back, I would say.
And would you say that varies from country to country in this region? Or is it all quite similar audience?
I would say there's I would say there's a macro and a micro level to it. So the macro, I mean, commodities go around the region in general, but then if you want to jump into the micro, so I would say if you want to do countries like Saudi Arabia is more prominent when it comes into oil, for example, but within the UAE, we see huge volumes that would be more attracted to gold, silver, platinum even, so anything from the precious metals. So again, I think the more you dive in, the more micro you go, the more you will have to localize, the more you will have to cater your offering. But on a macro level for the above, I think commodities for the region is the way to go.
Very interesting, yeah. Tara, perhaps you can give your comments on that as well and some examples of marketing strategies that you think work well in the region.
Sure, thanks. I'll start just by going back a little bit to who Saxo Bank is, because Saxo Bank has been a European broker since 1992, and our founder, Kim Fournet, his whole purpose was to democratize trading and investing. And why is that relevant? Because in this region, there's a lot of mass affluent, and these people actually want to take control over their finances. They don't want specifically to go back to the traditional asset management or private bank, etc. They really want to take control of their own investments. And that's where we come in as a company, because we've been called fintech before the word existed. And we really worked on democratizing investing and trading. And how does that fit into the MENA region? So as I said, everyone here has got a lot of wealth to start with. So we talk about high net worth individuals in this region a lot more than we do in other parts of the world, where we would accept different investors from a lot of smaller budgets to of course the millionaires, etc. But here the mass influence segment is quite huge. So by giving everyone the possibility to access the financial markets online and be able to choose any asset that they want, so from gold and oil, all the commodities, etc., to the stocks, so to follow what's happening, for example, in January with GameStop, etc., to be able to get on that wave is basically for us giving the local market the ability to do that and servicing this mass affluent segment, which is quite prominent here. But also to talk about the marketing strategies. So obviously, for us, it's a lot about localization. So starting with what Mohammad just said, because we're a Nordic company to start with. And here, I mean, Nordic is quite minimalistic, cold, quite bare, to be honest. But here, it's very different. Like, you should see some of the photo shoots that we do for Denmark, and then they send them to me, and I'm like, guys, I really can't use this here.
Nobody's smiling or anything.
So it's quite interesting, I'm gonna say. But at the end of the day, after we talk about localization of visuals, of messaging, of also of products, of course. So let's give the traders here what they really want. What really works in this region, in my perspective, is to position yourself properly and to do a lot of brand awareness. And I can't stress enough as a marketeer how much brand awareness is important, because everyone runs after the quick wins, but brand awareness is an exercise that will take years to achieve, to have a proper awareness in the market. And it's not a quick hit and run strategy. So as long as you've got a good brand awareness, a good brand reputation, etc., then all the rest kind of falls into place. And it's really, and then you can use all the different marketing channels and your marketing mix to reach your customers consistently. And so I would say localization, brand awareness is very important, and then digital first. Everything has to be digital, at least for us.
Absolutely, and that you can track that better, can't you? Although maybe Oliver, you could speak a bit about sports sponsorship and how that can be used in the region.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I just wanted to finish with that point. Digitization is very important, and it's the first point, but then the one-to-one with clients is very important. And that's where this type of experiences, VIP experiences, etc., that Oliver provides are very important, because once you've secured all the client journey and made sure that your customers are happy on all fronts, from the first digital point to the last one-to-one contact, then you've secured a happy customer, and that happy customer in turn is your ambassador towards winning a lot more happy customers. So, sorry, go ahead, Oliver.
Continue. Makes complete sense. So, just on that, and to your question on sponsorship and how it's changed and what we've seen as a company here, but globally really is, I think if you think over the last sort of 5-10 years, companies within the online space, and if I'm specifically thinking in this building today, online trading and investment platforms, there's really, it goes back to your point on before it was really speaking to a private banker or meeting face to face and paper trading. Now that it's all online and it's masses, and it could be mass affluent, but there's also levels for mass, whatever it may be, different levels of the segment, is that they now see an opportunity, these companies, to really target sports like they probably didn't before, where it was more face-to-face and smaller firms and one-on-one with clients. They're using sports to really hit masses and hit them quick. And what we've seen change a lot, and you've even seen during the pandemic, and I'll go on to that in a minute, but you've seen massive change in the last year and a half. But if you go sort of 10 years, is a lot of the traditional companies that have sponsored for years, big football teams, in America, big US franchises, whatever it may be, airlines, automotive, you go through the main industries, a lot of them are not there now. That's to do with budget, that's to do maybe they feel their brand has hit a point and they don't need certain assets. I would probably say often it's more number one, that maybe the budget's not there, considering some of the prices you see from these rights holders now. But that has given, and not just companies without budget, but also actual regulations. So betting companies, which is very, very sort of prominent for the companies here. We've seen a lot of countries in Europe now banning betting from football shirts, from whatever it may be, and cigarettes and alcohol. So a lot of the big spending sponsorship sort of companies have actually been stopped from spending their money. So it's given these guys a huge opportunity to sort of go in there and go, right, there's some prime assets there that are ready for the taking, and we can go from a brokerage, a platform that isn't very well known, to being known across the world on a shirt of Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, like plus 500, or whatever it may be. Pretty much every team in the Premier League now has a FX broker. They're seen worldwide by 3.2 billion people that watch the sort of Premier League, for example. So there's been a big change, and I think that's only going to continue, and we're seeing it during the pandemic. There's been no spectators at these sports. There's been only on TV viewership, and you've seen the likes of TeamViewer, and we've probably all used TeamViewer. We've all been working from home. We've all struggled. Our IT departments are using TeamViewer to help us. And suddenly, out of nowhere, 4 or 5 months ago, in the space of 2 weeks, they've done the biggest shirt sponsorship for Man United ever and sponsored Mercedes Formula One team. So to me, that was like, wow. In the space of 2 weeks, a company like that has done that level of sponsorship. So I think online tech, it's just going to continue. And these are going to be the main players for a long time now.
If I can add also to Oliver's point, because yes, the pandemic has changed how we approach sports sponsorship, obviously, because all of a sudden you can't invite your clients anymore, you can't sponsor and be there with your own club, paddock club, etc. So it's really changed how we as marketeer also consume sports sponsorship, if you'd like, and how our clients view it and where the viewers are. So they're all at home, and all of a sudden, all of these advertising boards that are on a tennis court or on a football court, etc., became all sold digitally. So it didn't matter which brand was there on the ground. Me, as a Middle Eastern marketeer, I can make sure that Saxo Bank is there during a Champions League, for example, match, and everyone from the region will see it. So that's really interesting how that has changed, and how it gives you, with smaller budgets, again, the ability to have a lot more brand awareness and positioning, actually.
Yeah, so we've touched on digitalization, localization, sponsorship. I want to jump over to Renos, who also comes from a finance background, but then has changed his focus in the last few years. So if you could give us a bit of a background about how CSR is used in marketing budgets, and if you've noticed since COVID came along that you've had more companies donate towards your charity or become partners?
Sure. So basically, companies should allocate, or the accepted percentage of their net revenue is 2% of the profits should go to CSR if they have this ethical, let's say, mindset. But most importantly, it's not only to create a good name or brand awareness that they're doing something well. I think it's the sense of giving for their own employees, which starts from within. So they belong in an organization that tries to make this world a better place. I think already is a big step towards wanting to commit further to this company and serve the clients better, therefore maybe increase performance, whether it's sales or marketing or anything else. But at the same time, you create a platform for your company, your clients, your employees to come and join and do something beyond profit, which can be also ROI tangible, so you can know the impact and measure it. In 2020, I would say it was a very tough year for charities that were getting CSR support, because the first thing that a company would cut in tough times would be probably CSR marketing, as you may know. However, by the end of 2020, I saw personally a spike in the number of people who wanted to allocate their money to support us. And this year has been extremely a bless, I would say. I have not seen this level of support in my life, and not only as new partners and companies joining to be part of a change. I would replace the letter C of CSR with COVID instead of corporate. It's COVID social response. In our case, the village of Kizimkazi in Zanzibar was struggling with food, supplies. People had no jobs, and only last week we supplied 1 ton of rice to every household in the village that was sponsored by the companies that actually came together in this sponsors committee that we created. So we bring also companies together to feel that they're part of something bigger, because this is the only way to make an impact, which is very transparent and very accessible. So I would say it's a great future ahead that gave us a boost to become braver and dare to ask people to consider allocating some marketing spend on top of the sports and lead generation campaigns to just giving back, because it will also be very important for their own employees. That's what I want to highlight, because on this trip that I was in Zanzibar, companies came with their employees and their children to build classrooms, to help the village, and guess what? They felt very proud. They want to go back and do more and more and more. So.
Honestly, it's very impressive what he's done. You can follow him on Instagram and all the social media channels and see videos of the schools being built, the children learning. It's really quite impressive.
Just want to add on Renos's, from a broker perspective or a company that would usually donate, it does give you a sense of value to what you do, and it does make you feel good. But it's important. The one thing that you probably don't feel, but we feel on our side when we donate, it builds that sense of community where you donate, because at the end of the day, when you go to rural areas like in Africa, South Africa, or Southeast Asia or whatnot, the communities that would be your retail target or your retail traders are also part of communities that would be in need of that CSR initiative. So when you work closely with them by trying to sell them your products, but on the flip side, you're also pushing back some of that income into the community, it makes them feel good about themselves investing in such a company that has that CSR, corporate social responsibility, towards their own community. So it does help that credibility status. And in addition, it does make you feel good.
Sorry, just one quick question. I saw that FXPRIMUS did something for Ramadan, so
Yeah.
that's very appropriate for the region, and perhaps you can just briefly talk about that.
Yeah, so CSR and FXPRIMUS has always been a huge thing for us, and we just started like trying advertising heavily here and offering our services. So we did a CSR campaign where we were planning to feed 1,000 blue collars in Dubai, so camp workers and whatnot, but we eventually fed 2,460. So
Wow,
yeah, that was
congratulations.
awesome. Yeah, and we did the work ourselves, so we had fun.
I think it's really interesting, actually, the fact that they've done a promotion specifically to feed the blue collars here, because until last year in the MENA region, I felt that charity was always done on a personal level. People would donate from their own income, but not as a corporate level. So actually, since COVID-19 happened and we all stayed at home, and all of a sudden, everyone who collaborated in society, all those blue-collar workers, the delivery guys, the people who were, cleaning houses, the taxi drivers, all these guys who are at the base of society were found in very tough spots because they were doing all the dirty work while we were staying at home. And that's when a lot of social and corporate, social CSR came into place, and lots of companies started doing these promotions where it was a lot around food, where if you purchase something, then some of the profit will go towards that or that Foundation or Karim, for example, giving out some of their earnings to all the drivers, etc. So there's a lot that has been done in the region since COVID-19. I've really seen a change in how that has been approached.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because you guys work for larger corporates, and I mean, in terms of attracting affluent clients and part of a marketing strategy, do you find that sometimes, not yourselves, but companies use CSR just as a marketing tool, or do they actually go in there and rather than just donating, do they actually, like within large organizations, is there internal programs where the staff actually go to these places and get involved, or is it really a donation thing and then kind of stand off?
So my experience, if you don't mind, is that a lot of companies use it as a PR stunt, that's for sure. And the ones that don't do it a lot more hush-hush on a team level, or it doesn't mean that they don't do it and they don't give the help, of course, but it is, from a marketing perspective, it's really enticing to use that from a PR stunt. So there's definitely, let's not be hypocrites here.
So just adding a bit here, yeah, so definitely, I mean, it is labeled as a PR stunt 100%, but it depends how you do it, I would say as well. Like, it depends how micro or macro you would go with telling people that you've done it. But at the end of the day, it comes back in how you've raised the said contributed funds, right? So like Renos had mentioned, a lot of companies would, by default, when they're doing their budgeting for the following year, they would say, okay, this year I'm going to do 1%, 2% of my revenue for CSR. So at that point, it is PR stunt because I already know that I'm going to be doing CSR whether people contributed or not. But if you do it in a way where you involve your traders, when you involve your community, let's call them your community, then it feels like it's done by the people for the people. And then you don't highlight it as much, you don't push it because you've already done the work. You already got the word out for the people that matters, which is the community you're trying to help with their own funds that are with you. So I think it depends on how you do it, but definitely if you do it on the macro level, it's a PR stunt. If you do it on the micro and you're doing it within your community, it got that element, but it's more focused on them, I would say.
And one thing to Renos, what I really liked what you said is that the companies come with their employees and they actually help build things. So I think when it becomes really that personal, then it's really genuine and constructive, in my opinion. And I would love to hear more about that later.
For sure. In any case, the impact is done, Oliver. So whether you do it as a PR stunt or not, the money is sent to the organization, and as a recipient, I would really appreciate it. Yeah. And I will ensure that you are my partner who believed in me. I managed to convince you during the due diligence process, and I can report on the impact that you made as a company.
Well, you achieved what all of us want to do. We all say we're gonna go and do something, but we never do. But you did, so props for you, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, back to you.
Yeah, I think we've all been there where we wanted to help and then life gets in the way, but Renos actually did it, so I'm also very impressed. So if we go a bit more region specific now with our last question, we have the Expo 2020, we have the Formula 1 in Saudi Arabia, we have the Qatar World Cup, we have a lot of very important events coming up in the next few years in the region. This is a bit of an open question to everyone, but if you could say what you think is the most important event or tactic that should be focused on for the next 12 months, what would it be and why? Sure, we can start with Oliver and work our way down.
You should all spend all your budget on all of those things. But no, I think realistically, if you haven't been in a region where a football World Cup is, then I think I was chatting to Mohammad earlier, I think in 6 months' time after the summer, when we come back towards the back end of the year and then it's really advertised, I think this region will really realize how big a football World Cup on their doorstep is, especially in a country where everything's open again now, people are acting as friends again, which is great, but also where the World Cup's going to take place in a place with the same population size as Doncaster in the UK. So it's going to be about 10 kilometers between every stadium. I mean, for a fan, it's going to be amazing. I mean, amazing. I mean, it's 45-minute flight from here, and you can get to 2 or 3 games in a day if you really plan it right. So that's the biggest one. But what we're seeing, especially regionally, is how important Saudi's been, and what Saudi are doing in general in all industries and everything. They're doing mega projects and so forth, and attracting multinational companies. So the Formula One there, the first ever Formula One there has been, I mean, we've seen huge interest in these first sort of 4 or 5 months of this year. So
I'm sure you'll be there yourself, watching the front row.
Lucky. So, I mean, I totally agree with everything that Oliver said already. But I think also it's very important to talk about Expo 2020. And although most companies that are exhibiting here today will not be participating per se or sponsoring, it's very important to say that it will have a massive impact in the UAE because it's the biggest event, and there's a lot of capital placed behind it, and a lot of investment from the government here, from all the different countries that have invested with pavilions, etc. So there will be lots of traffic coming back to Dubai. So think about Christmas this year, December, how they brought so many tourists. I mean, that's not even going to be close to what's going to happen around October this year, where Dubai will be the hub, right? So there's definitely a lot of potential with Expo 2020, and how you tackle that is, of course, depending on the marketing strategy of each company and the interest. But there's definitely an opportunity not to be missed there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll second that with Tara. Basically, Expo 2020 has been more than 6-7 years in the making, with the delay as well. Speaking of affluent investors, it opens a completely new door on affluent investors, because you no longer just tap into affluent investors here. You do as well for the ones who come for the Expo 2020 as well. And it's not like a 1 week or a 1 month expo. I think it runs for 6 months. So a lot of companies would probably already have got premises here, accommodations for their own employees who happen to be in the segment of an affluent investor. So I think, oh yeah, here we go. I think definitely Expo 2020 is a way, but I would look to diversify my kind of target audience. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all affluent investors, but like we touched earlier, we would be localizing for the ones here, but given the fact that they would be from abroad just here, so you'll need to have a bit of a diversification in types of what you target, who you target, and what you target them with. The other thing I would say that is very prominent to do is probably digital. Like, it doesn't matter if you go and you do the face-to-face thing, but if I'm not tracking you here, following you there, converting you at the end, I'm just dropping the ball somewhere. And I think that's very important, finding out like the follow-up of the digital side rather than just relying on our call centers or our follow-up salespeople. But yeah.
You said it all, so you make it hard for me now to come up with something else as a marketeer. The obvious is CSR, but I would agree with Expo 100%, and of course the World Cup is a big one. I would say that there's a new segment now. It's people are on NFT trying to sell digital art on, with cryptocurrencies. There's a massive market there, and people are now trading themselves, exchanging. So I think there's a new segment that you can really target and see how you can probably engage with them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so crypto, the world in general, is great. There was a discussion earlier, I think it was the panel at 12 o'clock, and they were talking about what's in store for 2022, 2021. And there was a very curious question that I wanted to probably ask Tara. Do you think cryptos will become currencies, or would they just be assets that we can trade like stocks on? Because if they don't become currencies, they stay as assets, does that give us more advantage to use them as products? And where regions products?
Okay, the microphone doesn't want to hear the question. I mean, look, cryptocurrencies, the whole idea behind them is that they will not become actual currencies because they won't be controlled by governments, etc. So that's the basis of it. But I'm no crypto expert. What I see them as on the long run is, of course, assets for people to trade with. And there's different ways of approaching crypto, whether it's as CFDs or owning the coin in a cold wallet or trading it as FX. There will be a lot more offering on the crypto side for sure. But if they become actual currencies, perhaps in the long future.
So the reason I asked is because it could be a good tool to try and attract people when you do offer them as a means of deposit withdrawal, let's call it, since we don't want to label it as a currency. But we do see that in the region as well, which is something that I didn't really want to dive into, but since Renos brought it up, then maybe. There is a big share of the market here that deals with the crypto world in general. Whether we like it or not, I think it's going to be the future. I'm not making any claims or anything, but offering the conveniency of having the option to use crypto as a means to take part in something is definitely an advantage. And we're seeing day by day more PSPs, more acquiring solutions and processing solutions that would help you go from crypto to fiat, fiat to crypto. And I think with the Expo 2020, a lot of the migrated mass affluents, let's call them, the ones who will come for the Expo, are going to be the majority dealing on that side. So I think being prepared to take that on board and having the correct infrastructure for it will play a big role into grabbing the mass of affluence.
Look, I mean, talking about cryptocurrency, if you look at the UAE and the GCC region in general, they're doing everything to set it up for it. So actually, this is one of the only regions in the world where they're really welcoming cryptocurrencies and encouraging blockchain technology, etc. So yes, in the near future, I mean, we've also seen things happening here, like being able to buy an apartment with Bitcoin. So all of this is somehow happening, where the real question is, do people really trust those cryptocurrencies? And especially when you see crazy volatility from a day to another, and people's investments are resting at it, will they be comfortable to use it as an actual currency on the short run? Yeah. That's a bit, I think that's the real question here.
100% agreed, especially, sorry, me and Tara are taking
No,
the
go for it.
panel.
I'm glad that
Sorry,
we touched
guys.
upon this because it's the future and it's a very exciting topic. So.
No,
Oliver, can we
definitely.
pay in cryptocurrencies to get a sponsorship?
That is a good point, because Crypto.com are sponsoring 4 or 5 major different assets in the last probably month. So eToro did it at 7 football clubs in the Premier League purely for their crypto exchange aspect of their business. So yeah, I mean, it's going, and part of it is to use it for paying for tickets and using the technology. So it's everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere, and you can't get away from it. So.
Yeah, no, touching back on what Tara said in terms of volatility. So you got one guy with one tweet that can move an asset market cap 25 billion plus minus. So he moved it up 25 billion and he moved it back down last week. So it's definitely volatile, but I think it's an important aspect to consider when you want to attract, especially the mass affluence, because they're new tech, they're digital, they're all about like new stuff, and they don't trust the ban. So they trust whatever is being fed to them, and that's how crypto started, right? It started to screw the system, and that's what they are trying to do. So I think it will play well with the mass affluence to try and be as ready as possible infrastructure-wise. But definitely currency thing, that's a government play, and we don't want to dive into that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a space to watch, and it's going to be an interesting few months and years to see how companies adapt in that space. So I've asked all my questions. I'd like to take the last couple of minutes to open up the floor to anybody who's got questions themselves. Please raise your hand, and the guys will be ready to answer your questions.
I think everyone's ready for the end of the day.
Okay, well, thank you very much to, first of all, our speakers and to everybody in the audience. You can grab us afterwards as well if you want to speak to anybody who have any questions, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening.